St. Louis has a long and storied history of live theater. But where did it all begin? Through the 2022 Give STL Day fundraiser, the Missouri Historical Society sought to preserve artifacts from the earliest days of St. Louis theater and tell the story of the man who was determined to establish professional theater in the city.
Noah Ludlow was a New York-born actor, producer, and theater manager who, along with his longtime business partner Saul Smith, dominated the theater scene in St. Louis, New Orleans, and Mobile, Alabama in the mid-1800s. Before he came to St. Louis, he was an actor, he was in traveling theater companies. He always loved the theater, but knew that he wanted to go west of the Mississippi to try to establish drama in other parts of the country. Noah was introduced to a St. Louis newspaper publisher who told him that St. Louis, even though it was such a small town in 1819, it was lacking for entertainment and that the people really wanted theater. And so he made up his mind that he was going to travel there and establish the first permanent professional acting company.
Despite objections from his friends and colleagues, Ludlow came to St. Louis in 1819. However, the next few years were filled with hardships and tragedies.
He established the Old Salt House Theater when he was first in St. Louis. He had a lot of trouble heating that first theater. And so it actually got so bad that at one point his wife, who was performing in one of the shows, fainted on stage and had to be brought home. Eventually, another theater company moved into town, and he said they were more experienced and just did a better job. So he was only able to do that first season back in 1819. He was bouncing around from city to city, performing depending on where he was. He would write about all of the tragedies of the day. So yellow fever would sweep through Mobile, and the next year his theater there burned down and he lost his scenery, props, costumes, everything.
In the 1830s, Ludlow would return to St. Louis and try one more time to follow his old dream. With better funding, Ludlow opened the St. Louis Theater in 1837.
The St. Louis Theater was very popular overall, especially the first several seasons did really, really well, and St. Louisans flocked to this new entertainment.
Many of the country's most popular actors also flocked to the St. Louis Theater.
A big one was Julia Dean, who performed in the 1840s. We also know that Junius Brutus Booth performed there. He was a major tragedian of the day, and he's also the father of John Wilkes Booth. The St. Louis Theater had its final season in 1851, and after that the building was sold to the federal government. But another theater opened up right nearby, so the tradition continued immediately. As far as Ludlow's story, he continued to be in the theater world for decades, and in 1880 he wrote a book that was part biography and part accounting of how theater came to the West and the South of the U.S. The Missouri Historical Society has a jacket and pair of trousers, as well as a wig that were worn by Ludlow in 1837 after the St. Louis Theater first opened. He was performing the character of Dr. Pangloss in a comedy called An Heir at Law. So we have the costume that he wore right after the theater opened. We also have a book of his that was of Shakespeare's comedies and tragedies with an inscription in it when he passed it along to one of his sons. The funds that are going toward these pieces, the costume and the wig, will help us stabilize and clean them so that they can get the conservation care that they need in order to be around for years to come.